Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello and welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. My name's Jon Sanders. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and I want to tell you a little bit about the episode you're getting ready to watch. So we're in a little mini-series right now where my other co-host and I, Les Hughes, we are rolling out our brand new Pastor's Roadmap to Financial Freedom. And really this course is built around four major modules, four major concepts. So if you missed the last two episodes, I would invite you to go back and check those out because they kind of build on each other. We start with mindset, then we talk about the value of taking an assessment of who we are. This episode, we're talking about which of the pathways, we have three different pathways that we offer, which of those pathways will guarantee my financial success. Now, obviously, we can't guarantee anything with this coaching program, with this course that we've put together. But what we believe is that if we help you get your mindset right, if we help you take an accurate assessment of who you are and how God has created you, we can help you choose a pathway where success is all but guaranteed. As long as you take the action that is necessary, you will experience success down this road. So we've got a great conversation coming your way. Check out this talk that Les and I did on this conversation of which pathway should I choose? Which of these three pathways will guarantee my financial success? Hope you enjoy it. Check it out. This is the title of this episode, Which Pathway Will Guarantee My Financial Success? Now, Les, just by way of summary, for those that may be brand new to our listening audience, I want to just put this out there. At Entre Pastors, our mission, our goal, our heart is to help pastors do better financially. We are over the narrative of the starving pastor. We're kind of done with this myth that says to serve God in ministry means I also synonymously have to struggle financially and live paycheck to paycheck, being overworked and underpaid. We're not mad about pastors serving the Lord and serving the church. We're just kind of done with the idea that they have to be broke and in poverty to do it. You agree with that? Can I get an amen?
Amen on that, brother. Keep preaching.
All right, so I'm going to keep preaching. So we want to see pastors succeed financially. We want to see, we think that when pastors are winning financially, that's going to flow over into other areas of their life. We think when a pastor is thriving and doing well and healthy, that it makes sense that their churches that they lead are going to have a much better chance of being healthy and thriving when the pastor is healthy and thriving. And the reverse of that is also true. When the pastor is struggling and not healthy, I think it's very reasonable to believe that the church will also be struggling and not healthy. And so we see this as part of helping the church. Certainly it's not the be-all, end-all answer, but it's a part of a really complex solution to help the church do better, and that's to help the pastors who lead it thrive. And so we recommend multiple different pathways that a pastor can take. We think that having pastors out in the marketplace doing something entrepreneurial where the lid is pretty much removed in terms of their income earning potential, when you're doing something entrepreneurial and building a business, that lid in many ways disappears. You start punching a time clock for someone else, certainly working inside the four walls of a church, that lid is put on immediately, and it's a pretty low lid much of the time. Would you agree with that, Les?
I would. And, just as a caveat to all of this, these are things that we're doing, John. I mean, these aren't just theories for us. I mean, they're not hypotheticals. We've done the things that we're going to be talking about actually for a few years now, but together now for just right at a year. And so we've been able also to see some things that in a general way, man, these things generally work. And this over here, that's not the wisest thing to do. And so we're going to be sharing some of those things as well.
Absolutely. So what we recommend is, as we help pastors get out into the marketplace, we recommend after, oh, by the way, let me back up and say this. We have what we call a pastor's roadmap to financial freedom. And the MAP is an acronym, MAPS. And the M is mindset, the A is assessment. We've talked about those two big ideas the last two episodes. This week, the P is pathways, and we're going to be diving into that a little bit. And first, before we start answering some why questions behind the pathways, I want to just describe what we consider to be three kind of main pathways forward for a pastor out in the marketplace. And by the way, we're going to be adding more in the near future. We've got a couple other avenues that we're going to be offering to help pastors down. But currently, at the time of this recording, we've got three broad pathways, and I want to describe them in case we've got maybe a new listener that may not. I don't want to just assume everyone knows what we're talking about. So I won't go deep into the details on this, Les, but here's the three pathways as we described.
1 second.
Go ahead. Yep.
Before you do that, I just want to stop long enough to point out that this is a perfect example of what we're talking about today on this in this episode, because we could have chosen 10 pathways, but these are very broad categories. As you just mentioned, we know that there are going to be more, but for us to try to do all of them at one time would mean that would really dilute what we're doing, to the point that it probably wouldn't be as helpful or as clear. In a similar way as on a church field, in a church, in a community, there are dozens of ministries and missions and visions that you might be able to have, but you'll choose some based upon, we'll get into all the models, but there are some variables that are based upon your community, your ability, what God's saying to you or to your team. And so in the same way, these are three very broad categories that they're general. That doesn't mean they're not helpful. They're very, very helpful, but we're starting here for the very reasons that we thought it was important to do this podcast on how to choose that pathway, or why it's important to choose that pathway, not to try to do everything, but to really try to do a few things very, very well. I just wanted to point that out before you go into the three, because it's a great example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's such a good word, Les, because in the church world, and if we went over there for a minute, which I know a lot of pastors like geeking out on church stuff, right? That's where we spend so much of our time and energy and focus. That is so true, Les. Like, this could be a whole podcast episode in and of itself, but so many churches do exactly that. They try to do everything. They try to be all things to all people, and look around and see, well, what are other churches doing? And rather than walking in the unique footprint that God has designed and created them for, and focusing on what are the one or two things that we do really well, what is special and unique about this local gathering of believers, we look around and go, well, we need this ministry and that program and this thing and that thing. And then we end up becoming so diluted that we're really effective in very little. That's true very much in my tribe, if you will, of kind of the churches that I've been serving for a long time and speaking into through my other small town, big church platform. Small churches are, I think that's one of our Achilles heels, is we try to be generalists. We try to be all things to all people, and we end up serving, I don't want to say no one, but we end up serving on a much lower level than what we could do if we really laser focused on that one thing, or the one or two things that we could really be known for, to the neglect of some of these others. But anyway, that's a different episode, but it ties in. I love that principle that you grabbed onto. So for right now, we have three broad categories that we recommend a pastor consider out in the marketplace. The first one we call the informational based pathway. And it's the idea of taking your intellectual knowledge, taking your mental capacity, your ideas, and monetizing them through a number of ways. It's, building a speaking business, a coaching business, writing, those types of things, creating a podcast, a YouTube channel, where you're basically creating content and putting information out into the world. Certainly there are people, us included, who are making a living doing that. We're building streams of income through that pathway. The second one is what we call our e-commerce pathway, the ability to sell products online. There's people all around us, Les, just killing it in that space. And they're wired for that, and they're doing a great job of that. And the third one is the service-based pathway, where you're tangibly providing a service for someone, you're building something, fixing something, whatever. And again, there's a lot of ways that you can broaden out in that pathway, but those are kind of the three big ideas, pathways that we would encourage a pastor to consider moving down as you get started out in the marketplace. Here's where I want to start today with you, Les, is here's the first question I really want to wrestle with. Why do we suggest multiple pathways? Why are we not just saying we're going to be the people that help you launch a platform, or we're going to be the people that help you launch a, professional cleaning business? Why do we have multiple pathways that we're bringing to pastors and suggesting choose one?
Well, there are multiple reasons, but I want to give you a couple and then I'll hand it back off. And I know you've got some things to add. One is that, it's just the analogy of not putting all your eggs in one basket. There's a reason that people use that cliche a lot. One of the reasons is it's very much true. You and I both know individuals that it's not that they deliberately were limiting themselves. It was just that they became so successful, maybe in one area or using one platform or one social media platform, that they kind of just threw all the gasoline that they had on that one fire, and it flamed up for a while, but then it was quickly doused. I mean, we know people that have literally lost just about their entire businesses in a moment because of a decision that was made on somebody else's platform.
Mm-hmm.
So now what they're doing, and the same thing that we're doing, John, is to create these multiple streams of income. Pastors, people with ministry backgrounds, are for the most part very gifted and very, very versatile. And so it just allows a person to not be, if they do get a punch in the gut from somewhere that in something that they can't control, it doesn't knock them out and put them down for the count. They can pivot and say, well, that's I got a setback over here, but I can focus on this and instead for a while. And the second reason that I was thinking of is that it just gives you more options. It just gives more, it gives you more options, and it really makes a person more useful the more that they can do. And as I was thinking this through, I'm thinking of say a baseball coach, who's got this team, and he's got a guy on the team that's, kind of, maybe he's left-handed and he's kind of a big guy, not real mobile, doesn't have a great bat, but man, you throw something from the infield toward his direction, first base, he will get it. All right. Mm-hmm. And it won't get past him. But now you've got another guy that can play any infield position, any outfield position. He can bat cleanup if you want him to. I mean, you're gonna find a guy that guy, if he can also play first base, that's okay. But you're gonna have him in the lineup because there are a lot of things he could do and could do well. So you just are very limited if you're kind of a one-faceted person and that's it. And this is something that I've lived, in putting the majority or almost exclusively relying upon one source of income, and then things happen that you just can't control. And it's not even a matter, John, of trusting whether I trust God or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere, none of the 10 commandments say thou shalt have only one source of revenue.
Right.
We trust God overall to provide, but how he does that could look like a lot of different things. And there's a reason. I mean, people that are listening to us right now, they may or may not ever have a goal of a 7-figure income, whatever. It's just stuff, right? I mean, it's only stuff, wood, hay, and stubble. But there's a reason that millionaires on average have about 7 different streams of income. They've even figured this stuff out. And so I think that's those are a couple of good reasons to do what we're talking about.
Right. I agree with all of that, and would echo that as well. That, the idea of having multiple streams of revenue, this is what we see as a struggle for many pastors, is that you are completely beholden to one source of revenue. And it's, by the way, it's not usually a very good source of revenue to begin with. It's built upon a model of, hey, we need your financial donations in order for the bills to keep getting paid. So it's not coming from necessarily producing anything. It's coming from essentially a handout. And believe me, I'm all about people giving. I believe in that. I believe it's biblical. I believe God's people should give. I believe we're blessed when we give. it's still not a great business model to be fully reliant upon the charitable donations of other people when there's not some level of production happening behind it where we're creating this wealth. That wealth is being created out in the marketplace. And then, church, go ahead, jump in.
Well, I want to mention one of the reasons that happens, because there is a reason for it. And the reason is that when there is not margin, stress comes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
And when stress enters the picture, it can affect our thinking. It can affect our faith. It can affect
Mm-hmm.
our faith. And especially if there are other people such as family that are relying upon us, or
Yep.
church family relying upon us. And what I mean by that is when there's not margin because there's not any, money when it comes to the end of the month, it just constricts everything, and there's a tension there. It can affect relationships. Again, it can affect our faith and our decision making. And so what we're saying is that if there are things that we can do that can help that stress not be there, that's a good thing. You may not be able to control whether or not the money's there or the resources are there from one source, but by creating these different streams, when one or more of those sources is taken away, we can have something to say about how much stress is placed on us as a result of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless like as I hear you unpack that, my mind's going back to my own journey as a lead pastor, where for the many years where that was my only source of income, and how that very real stress affected areas of my life, my decision making at the church level, my, probably my tone and how easy I was to live with in the home. When you're feeling that financial pressure of, man, the budget is tight, giving's down, church has got some major expenses we're dealing with, like, it's just a tough place to be. I've been there, done that, probably have some PTSD from all of it, and I don't want that for pastors anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I want to help them do better. So yes, everything you're saying, we're offering multiple streams of revenue or multiple pathways, because we think it's a good thing for pastors to have multiple streams of revenue, like, and to have those options. By the way, we'll get to this in a minute. We're not saying we think a pastor should walk down all of these pathways. It's okay to just choose one of them, but now we've got that plus pastoring, right? Now we've got, and inside of that, we're going to find too, inside of all these pathways, there's options to broaden out so you can still just be in the service-based pathway, for instance, and have multiple streams of revenue. You can just be in the information-based pathway and have multiple streams of revenue. So we're not saying that a pastor needs to choose every one of these pathways to have multiple streams of revenue. But I like what you're offering that as an answer to the why. Why are we offering them? Well, because we think it's good for a pastor to have multiple streams of revenue for all of the reasons that you've just said. The other thing that I'll say, I guess, that I would add to that, Les, to the conversation, and this ties into what we talked about in last week's episode, so I won't go too far down this road, but again, it gets back to this idea of snowflake pastors, that God has created each of us very unique. There's no one else out there exactly like Les Hughes. I mean, there may be some close copies, but they're just that. They're copies. There's no one else that is uniquely the same as Les Hughes. And so we think that that's why we're not going to just offer this one single path formula to say this is what every pastor should do, because God didn't make you exactly the same as the guy next to you or the gal next to you. So we've got options because there's multiple pathways for very unique and diverse body of Christ, where God has made us all very different from one another. So we think it's important to acknowledge that. That's why that assessment that we talked about last week is so important, because it helps you then choose which pathway should I move forward down. Anything
That's a
you would
great
add to
point.
that?
That's a great point. And it all, we can go ahead and throw in there that it's good to get started. However you get started, we created the reason this pathway exists, or not pathway, but the reason that the roadmap exists is just what we're talking about. Rather than throw all of the content that we come up with in one big bucket, we really tried to make this a step-by-step roadmap or blueprint for people to follow, depending on really where they are in the process. But this needs to be said, and this is a good place, I think, to point this out, John. No course, no video, no book, all of the things that can help us on our journey, they really can't take the place of that human interaction. And so that's why, as a part of this, people can come in at any level. We didn't want to exclude anyone who just wanted to, kick the tires for a minute or look under the hood before they jump in. A lot of people are wired that way. We both we're researchers. We do research too. We're just more likely to take action a little quicker, I think, than some. But there's not the courses, the videos, the instructions, they're great for what they are, but they're general. They're not tailor-made for an individual the way that we or someone else. If we're going to talk a moment about finding somebody who's doing what you want to do and really gaining from their experience, from their wisdom. You can either get wisdom from having your own experience, which sometimes takes a while and can be painful, can leave some scars, or you can gain some wisdom by the experience of other people and the successes and failures of other people. And that just seems wiser to me. But maybe that's just me, but it just seems wiser. But that's what being a part of this community at whatever level you're involved, that's the value of the community, is that you can nuance the path, the roadmap, the path. It's because it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Well, that gets to really if I can answer the question from the title of the episode, we're asking which pathway will guarantee my financial success. Unlike the plan of salvation, the answer to this one is there's multiple pathways, right? Like there's multiple ways to get to that final destination of being financially free and being successful financially. And again, when we say successful, I want to define what I'm saying. I don't mean that you live in this massive house and have, BMWs and Mercedes in the driveway. And if that's part of your definition of success, then go for it. I'm not mad about it. For me, financial success is where finances are not this limiting thing in my life anymore, this source of constant stress and pressure. I'm at a place where there's margin and true abundance, and it's just not a worry when something comes up in life. Like, at least from a financial standpoint, it's not something that I have to sit and stress and fret about. So anyway, which pathway will guarantee my financial success? The answer is it all depends. There's really any pathway you choose can take you there. We want to help you choose the best one for you. I don't want to say the right one, because there's not a right one, because we know people on multiple pathways and they're all getting to that destination. But we want to help you choose the right one that's there for you. So the last question I really want to wrestle with, Les, and we can go a lot of directions with this, but it's, what advice would we offer to someone who's just getting started? So again, reaching back to last week, we said that, first of all, we got to do some mindset work. Then we need to do some inner self-assessment. Now that I've got some of that work going, and now that I've got a better understanding of who God has created me to be and my temperament and how I'm wired, now it's time to choose a pathway and start down that road. So what advice would we give, whether someone's choosing the information-based path, the e-commerce path, the service-based path? What are some general principles of advice that we would offer to someone up? You already mentioned the first one, and but I'll just put an exclamation.
Oh, I'd repeat it. Yeah, go ahead.
Start, man. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, well, it's not the biggest, but if you don't start, you're never going to get there, right? That's right. Kind of common sense. And I think so often we have this tendency to ready, aim some more, and Les, I think you and I are both wired a little bit more of the ready, fire, aim. We'll kind of take aim after the bullets, been released.
Watch the tracer. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we'll adjust course. Let's see where these bullets are hitting, but let's shoot the gun, for crying out loud. And I'm definitely wired to take action, but I'll tell you this, Les, the people that I see experiencing the most amount of success in life are people that are wired for action. And so if you're kind of naturally a navel gazer and a processor, where you have to kind of sit and think, that's going to be a challenge you have to overcome. At some point, you have to take action. You got to pick a path, and you got to get started. And
I can almost guarantee something. Everybody listening to this, if they've led a church or led some sort of ministry organization like that, they know a guy. Okay. They know somebody that seems to have the Midas touch. They do it and it works and it's lucrative. And I can guarantee you this. You don't see everything that really happens behind the scenes.
That's right.
That person is just an action taker, and they've taken action and taken action and taken action, and they've shaken the dust off their feet plenty of times
Lots
and
of dust.
left some things behind to move on to something else. And what you see are the places where they've had a lot of success because they've stopped there and they've camped out there for a while or for a season or until they get somebody else to run it, and then they can go ahead and pivot to something else. That's what you see. But the things that they have in common is that every one of them were action takers. So believe me, I know most of us, we have a spiritual gift of knowledge. If we're in a teaching ministry or preaching ministry of some kind, that means we like to learn, which means we like to read. We like to listen to podcasts. We like to watch YouTube videos. We like to listen to other people preach, and all that has its place. But if you really want to see the needle move to see results, you got to be doing the habits that are going to lead to those results. So take action.
Take action. The next piece of advice that I would give, this is going to kind of balance it out, because maybe the bad thing, or maybe where our strengths can be our weaknesses, guys like you and I, Les, sometimes we can start a lot of things. And so if we just start a bunch of stuff and we don't do what I'm getting ready to share next, it can be problematic. So what I would say, advice for getting started down your pathway, is at first, you really do need to focus. Earlier, Les and I were talking about having multiple streams of revenue. We think that's great. I don't know that it's a great idea to go launch 7 streams of income tomorrow. Like, I think as you get started, focus is going to be your friend. Les, you used a laser analogy before we started recording this. Tell your laser analogy.
Well, if we're in a room together, I can hold a flashlight on you for as long as I want to hold it, and you're never going to notice anything. But if I have a laser that's focused, you'll know real quickly that that's not just a flashlight. There can be pain involved in that. And a laser can cut, and it's just for one reason. It's the intensity of that beam, the intensity of that light. If we want to go a little bit more old school than that, whatever, I don't know if it's an ancient African or Chinese proverb or where it came from, but the old proverb of if a person is trying to go and chase down many rabbits, won't catch any. If you focus on one, and you're more likely to catch that one. And so it's true in this regard as well. It doesn't mean we have to stay there. I remember, John, the first time that a business coach was trying to teach me this principle, and I looked at what he was being successful at, and there were like 6 or 7 things. And I'm like, he's telling me focus on one thing, but he's got all these things. What I needed to remember was that he didn't start that way.
There you go.
There was an area of expertise that he really nailed first and built first, and then he was able to have the luxury of starting some other things. But there's no doubt most of them just start with one thing. And the good news, John, is that really to get some wins under your belt and build on something, you really only need to be successful in the one thing.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And as you get successful, and as that thing starts to grow, now you've got an option. You can just keep pouring all your eggs into that basket, or you can start to build some systems around that thing to keep it flying. And, it's the analogy of getting an airplane up off the ground. Like, it takes a ton of fuel to get that thing off the runway and up into the atmosphere. But once it's up, like, it doesn't take near as much time and energy and focus to keep it going. Like, let the thing fly for a while, keep your eye
momentum
on it, but it's once it's up in that jet stream, it's going to do its thing and it's going to fly. So launching a business is very similar. Early on, you really do need to give it some focus. There's going to be momentum and thrust that's needed to get that off the ground. And it's not a good idea to try and launch 7 airplanes at the same time. Launch one.
Do you want to go and share here about our journey? Because we're not taking our foot off the gas pedal by any stretch, but what we're doing now, we're getting arguably more done because we have a team than when it was just pretty much you and me at the beginning. And so that world, our world looks a little bit different now. I don't know how deep we want to get into that, but just in a general way, why don't you share a bit about that?
Well, I will, and if I'm missing the target of what you're wanting me to hit, then you just say what you're wanting to say. But yeah, I first of all, I do genuinely think it's a good idea for us, Les, to be transparent with our audience. Like, I want pastors to see kind of behind the curtain sometimes. Entree Pastors is a business. This thing you and I are building together is a for-profit business. I know some people refer to it as a ministry, and certainly there's a ministry aspect to it, but make no mistake about it, you and I are doing this to serve people and to get paid accordingly for the service we're providing. And I think it's good to kind of peel back the curtain and let people see our journey so we can just transparently model this for them. And you're right, Les, early on, when about a year ago, little over a year ago, when you and I were just kind of talking about this in conceptual form, it didn't take long for it to go from that to like, we're doing this. Like, we jumped off the cliff and we're building this thing and it's going. But pretty quickly, we started to build a team around that. And you and I are taking a long look at this. We want this to be around for a while. And we are recognizing that principle of, if you want to go, how do they say it? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so we're building a team of people to really help us do this thing for the long haul and to build something really special here. And as a result of that, that's taking that this last year, you and I have focused a lot on this Entree Pastors thing. And we both have, we both have taken different areas of the business and kind of had our own oversight of it. And then there's a lot that we've shared together. And I know your calendar has looked very similar to mine, many days, a lot of stuff with Entree Pastors. But now we're about 12 months into this thing, and by no means are we suggesting that we have this exactly where we want it. We still have a lot of growth to do. On some levels, we're slightly frustrated with where we find ourselves, because we would like to be further down the road. I think that's just common to the entrepreneurial mindset, that pursuit. But we are at a place now where we've built some systems around our business. We're able to, when I say take our foot off the gas, I don't want that to sound like we're slowing down or giving up, but where it's not going to require as much day to day because of the systems we've built, because of the team we've built. Is that kind of where you were wanting me to go with that?
Exactly.
What would you add to that?
Well, just what you did, we're in addition to the benefit for you and for me and for our families, we are able to help some other people here who are doing the same thing, just in a different way. So we have people on our team, they're not relying upon their entire livelihood on Entree Pastors, but we are a contributor. I mean,
Yeah,
so we're
we've
helping them
created some
reach.
work for people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing as
I
well.
like that. I like that. Once you and I get to the point that we've created income for us out of this, that would be really fun. So, and by the way, I say that tongue in cheek, a little bit jokingly, but seriously, Les and we keep investing back into the business. So when we talk about the information-based pathway, we're making money on this every month. That money's going right back into the business, hiring a team, and marketing and those types of things. So we're taking the long look. If you were to look at my balance sheet, as and what I've made from Entree Pastors this last year, you would say Jon has had a very expensive hobby that's taken much of his time. But again, it's a hobby that's producing something that's being used to go to other people and build something, investing back into the business. Which, by the way, leads maybe as a good thing to the next piece of advice we would offer up. I don't know how to say this. I'm just going to word it this way, to say, as you're getting started down a pathway, you need to make a decision. And I'm not an either or thinker, but let me share the dichotomy, Les, and then we'll wrestle with the tension that it creates. It's, do I choose something that I'm passionate about, or do I choose something that I know is profitable? I like both, and like where I would love to see pastors end up is in that sweet spot where the answer is yes, it is something you're passionate about and it's profitable. But the problem is getting started. Sometimes if we just focus on passion and we don't really answer the question, but is it paying the bills, we can find ourselves with that hobby, that really expensive hobby that we're giving a lot of time and energy and focus to, that's not bringing in any income. And if all we do is look at what can I do to get paid, and there's really no passion or love behind it, we can quickly find ourselves resenting a job that we've created for ourselves. So there's a tension in there, Les. What would you speak to that person that's like, well, which do I choose? Is it the passion, or is it the profitability that I'm looking
Oh
for?
man, it's such a rich question. So here's how I would address that. Don't try, I would say, please don't try to make that important decision completely on your own. And we haven't either. And in addition to that, I'll go back and speak in a little more detail in 1 second. But another big rock regarding that question is this is something that you don't have to completely know before you get started taking action. Now, let me take those two principles and put them together. Somebody that we greatly admire and who has been a good mentor and business coach to us is Dan Miller. We've mentioned that before, and Dan has been awesome in really helping guide us, but also being an encouragement and a cheerleader. But he speaks truth. Like if you're in Dan's presence and you say something that he doesn't think is a very good idea, he
He'll let
won't.
you know.
He won't say something like, "Have you really thought that thing through?" Dan's more likely to say, "I think that's a terrible idea."
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think we both like that. So it's good to have someone who can speak that into you, who sees it. And so, having said that, one of the things that I'm going to butcher the actual. I won't try to quote him, but this is the gist of it. I've heard him say it enough, and that is that people want to know, man, I got to find my passion. I got to find my passion. I got to find my passion. When passion is, it's not like here's door number one, door number two, door number three. You better pick the right one. Passion is often not just discovered as much as it is developed.
Mm,
Okay.
that's
So
good.
you can, and I think we're both seeing some of that. So I think we're going to share part of some of the things that you're doing and pivoting to a degree in the backstage portion of
Yep.
this episode. But for me, I'll give you just a brief example. I love to read. I love to write. I love to communicate. And especially when it comes to things of the kingdom, but also helping other people uh, reach their goals and dreams. I love that stuff. All the self development. I love being a lifelong learner. Okay, but I would have I would have never, for me personally, thought about getting serious about any kind of ghostwriting business or platform. It just wasn't one of those things that really appealed to me. But earlier in my life, I'm kind of thinking getting my voice out there, and you know what I mean? You just kind
Mhm.
of do
Yep.
that. But once I reached, I kind of had that platform and lived in that world some, it's like, okay, whatever.
Mhm.
So to now help other people reach some of those same goals, and even far surpass them, that depending on what the message is, that really they have a saying in the South that really cranks my tractor, John. I don't know if they say that in South Dakota, but they say that down here.
We're
I mean,
about
that
to
really kind
now.
of
I like that.
that revs me up. I mean, that really gets me going. So having said all that, just in going down this path, I mean, the people that we meet, the things that the Lord speaks to us as we're really in times of prayer and meditation and thinking, as all those worlds have come together, some doors have opened up now in that world. And I'm really starting to love it, truly love it. And I'm learning more about that. And we're having some success in that world. And now I think that I'm going to be able to help some other pastors go down a similar road. We won't get into all of that now, but those doors are opening up. I say all that to say I didn't have a passion uh, 2 years ago about writing or co-writing other people, helping them with their message or ghost writing. But I tell you what, I do now.
Yeah.
But it's developed more than it was discovered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And yeah, it's been cool to kind of watch you on that journey of navigating that ghostwriting thing. It's just one part of what we would call the information-based path, but it's really more working behind the scenes, getting someone else's voice and message out into the world, but using the skill set that you have to craft a message and to, use words to communicate thoughts and ideas. So I love that, man. And it's been cool to watch that. My mind goes to something. I was recently going back through some of our Q&As that we do, our monthly Q&As we do as part of our Entre Pastors community for those that are in our membership. And someone, I don't even remember what the question was. Well, I do remember. The question was something about, I have all these ideas as an entrepreneur. How do I pick one? And the word passion came up, and I'll never forget Jody Pastori, who's in our community and been a guest on our show. He just said, like, he said, man, I hear people talk about passion and following their passion. And he said, don't take this the wrong way. He said, but I'm passionate about making money, and he said, so I do what's profitable. So that can be a good answer for some people as well. That resonated with me on some level. I don't want to just do something only because there's money to be made there. On some level, I still want to like to do it. But I'll tell you what, Les, this is just me speaking when I say this. You don't have to agree. If there's money there, chances are I'm going to like doing it, right? A whole lot more than if I'm just doing it for free for somebody. So I like getting paid. And so I'm motivated by that. I've always been that entrepreneurial kid that's like, you're going to pay me for this? I'll go do it. Can I do 2 of those and get paid twice as much? So anyway, I just think that there is a tension there. But for me personally, I'm going to lean toward the side of profitability. At the end of the day, show me the money. I need to get paid, because remember, this is about doing better financially and getting to financial success. So if, in keeping with the title of this episode, you got to lean toward the thing that's paying the bills. And hopefully, as you said, you'll discover a passion in there as well. And we can have you working in that intersection of where you're passionate, but you're also finding great profitability there too. So the last piece of advice we'll make this one kind of brief as we wrap up before we go to our backstage area, because I do have something I want to share, kind of an update with our community of some things that I'm doing a pivot in this pathway space. But the last thing we'll share is, as far as advice for someone getting started, would be you need to walk alongside of some other people, preferably some people that are further ahead of you down that pathway, to surround yourself with some people, mentors, leaders, coaches who are already winning down that pathway and can help expedite your process down there. Man, you don't want to have to navigate all the pitfalls and the minefield on your own and muddle your way through it. Get beside someone who can walk alongside of you and say, watch out, don't step there. This will hurt over here. Avoid that. Follow me down this way here. I want that person to lead and to guide me. So Les, what does that look like practically speaking? How does somebody get that person or those people around them in the pathway that they choose?
Well, one of the things it means, Jon, is that we take seriously the need that we have for at least another voice, or somebody who's been to the mountain who can serve as a guide for us, and make a decision today that you're going to invest in yourself and you're going to invest in your own success. I heard somebody that was very, very successful recently, who's made some very good investments, say that of all the investments that they've made, the ones that have worked, that have really moved the needle for them, they never made a wiser investment than the investments that they had made in themselves.
Hmm.
And that's not intended to sound narcissistic or self-centered. It's just the opposite. It's having the humility to admit, man, there are some things that I need right now that I do not have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to make an investment, put my money where my mouth is and my time where my mouth is, and the humility to just be quiet and listen. And just in my own journey, Jon, I'm so thankful for the things that I've learned, and I'm as impatient, my goodness, as anyone. Whenever through the years, if ever I was preaching on patience, and one of my kids around the dinner table on Saturday night was like, "Dad, what you preaching tomorrow?" I'm literally, if I ever said patience, there was an audible laugh back at me from everybody at the table. But boy, I wish now that I could go back in some ways and listen to that first business coach that I had that nailed it when he gave me some really solid suggestions, but I just kind of had to learn for myself. And when I came back, I was right where he told me, and I'm thankful for the journey. I'm thankful that it's happened the way that it has. I've still got a whole lot to learn, but man, if you find the right person who is willing to speak those things into you, um, and who has had success in the area that you want to, especially that you want to have success in, if they've already been there, they know the landmines, the pitfalls to avoid, the right habits to practice to get those results, then why wouldn't we listen? In the same, listen, man, athletes, John, that are at the top of their game have a coach.
Yep.
Professional athletes, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, who just go right down the, all-star basketball players, baseball players have hitting coaches. They can be batting 300, 350. They've still got a hitting coach because a coach can see things that we might not be able to see in the mirror. So I just really believe in that. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir because you do as well, but it's really an important piece of this.
Well, you're not preaching to me, Les. You're preaching to our listeners. And I agree with you, man. Like, I am where I am today because of the people that I have chosen to partner up with and link up with in life and learn from and be mentored by. And so my encouragement to any pastor listening to this, if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're done with that, being in that place of having one stream of income that comes from a church, there's a pretty low ceiling set on that income to begin with, and all of your eggs are in that one basket. You're just one board meeting away, one bad financial season of the church away from seeing that already pretty low income disappear. And you're ready to do something different. Stop thinking about it. Stop researching and take action. I would tell you, jump into the Entre Pastors community. We've got our roadmap, a pastor's roadmap to financial freedom. There's 3 different ways to interact with that. If you really want the fast track, Les and I would be happy to do some very intense coaching with you at a cost of $14.97 to get in your grill, to get in your world, to get in your business, and get you on the pathway toward financial freedom. We've got a cohort coming up in September 2022. There's going to be our first one. We'll probably do these every few months or so, where we take up to and no more than 30 people over the course of 4 weeks through that pastor's roadmap to financial freedom. Or if you're kind of more of a do-it-yourself and at your own pace, we've got our monthly membership at a cost of $97 a month. You can jump into that and have access to our course and all of the stuff that we offer as far as our community goes. And so we will be those sources of, your coaching and the community, the support, the encouragement to walk alongside you and encourage you down that pathway. Furthermore, we've got other guides in our community as well for every one of these pathways that you can speak to people that are doing exactly that. They're winning in that area and they can help you get there a lot faster. So we would encourage you to check that out. We're getting ready to wrap this up and go backstage. I do want to share something with our audience, those of you that are part of our backstage listeners. I'm going to share just a little bit of a pivot that I've taken recently in my life. And so if you're interested in what that might look like and some lessons you can learn from that, then I invite you to join us backstage. Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the Entre Pastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the Entre Pastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our Entre Pastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own Entre Pastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.